I call the January 9th, 2024 regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order at 7 p.m. We will now have an oath of office for two new commissioners, John Edward and Gwen Baldwin.
Thank you. Ms. Baldwin, I have been given the pleasure of doing this in my first time back, and for you and Mr. Edward. The oath of office is, I'll read to you, and I will say "I," and then you should state your name, and then repeat after me. How's that? I do solemnly swear that I will support
Do solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully and
impartially
discharge the duties
of the office of the Planning and Zoning Commissioner
of the office of the Planning and Zoning Commissioner
of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque
of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque
under penalty of law.
under penalty of law.
Thanks. If I can get you to sign that, and I will pick that up.
Here's
Mr. Edward. Yes. After me, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
and the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of the office of Planning and Zoning Commissioner
of the Office of Planning and Zoning Commissioner
of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque
of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque
under penalty of law.
under penalty of law.
If you would sign that and return them to me after the meeting, that would be all we need.
Congratulations. We now have a full commission. We'll have a roll call vote to see that a quorum is present. Commissioner Holman,
Here.
Commissioner Barrow,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Martinez,
Here.
Commissioner Edward,
Here.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Here.
Commissioner Michelson here. Let the record reflect that a full quorum is present for the meeting. Approval of the agenda. Director Rubin, are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, there are no changes to the agenda at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I will move approval of the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Holman has moved and Commissioner Barrow has seconded. We'll have a roll call vote. Commissioner Holman,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Edward, Commissioner Baldwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carries unanimously. We move now to the public comment period. Residents may address the Planning and Zoning Commission to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Audience members will be given an opportunity to comment on agenda items as they come up. Speakers must register with the village staff prior to the beginning of the meeting. I have a list of those who have signed to speak. Please come up to the podium as your name is called. State your name and address. Speakers will have 3 minutes. We have 2 for the public comment. Camille Varos. Just a minute while we adjust the speaker.
Okay, Happy New Year.
anyway,
Please state your
Camille
name and address.
Vados, 427 El Paraíso Road, Los Ranchos, New Mexico. I was expecting to talk on something else, but as I was looking down the website, I don't know that we could ask questions, but it lists applications for pilot projects and conservancy projects. And I just thought we have one, don't we?
There's one that's in process. There's a moratorium on that
Oh,
pilot project until this summer, I believe.
okay. Thank you, because that half of the time my internet is down. So when I have access to internet or Wi-Fi, whatever it is, and obviously it's here, that I was able to scroll down and see these types of applications. And anyway, so be it. As we move forward, and if there's going to be more pilot projects, our application for these projects, I hope that as commissioners in the P&Z department, that you would look at development in terms of material used, because we depend on water if we're agriculture, and if parking lots are going to be not earth or gravel, and they're going to be asphalt, where is our aquifers going to be absorbed? And I think that's a consideration. You know, if we're going to be listed as agriculture, and that's debatable with the Pelajom project and others to come, then I would have a concern about our water and our agriculture environment. And that's all I have to say. Otherwise, I'll just go beyond the 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second speaker is David Baird. Hello.
Hi, my name's David Baird, and I'd like to ask questions, but I know that's not part of the 3 minutes. So, I'm just trying to understand the zoning. I've been a broker in those ranchos for 20 years, and I still don't know what to tell people about what they can do and what they can't do within certain zoning and things like that. It'd be nice to try and understand it, but even as far as it went at Osuna and Fourth, that when I came in a few times to try and develop a property, they told me that I could only do a certain amount of things. Like I could only put 4 units in on 1/3 of an acre. And I'm trying to do things like either sell it or develop it. And it's hard to tell people. And I just say, well, you just got to go down to the village and ask them what you can do. And then you got to go and ask them again after you put it in. I just don't know. It doesn't seem like there's well, this is C1, you know, or this is R2. It seems like it all has to get through another step. I'd like to be able to read it and not have to go through all these reviews on it. if it's in the zoning and it says that's what you can do with it, then that's what you should be able to do with it. And I think the zoning's gone up and down, and it's gonna keep doing that from the sounds of things, that, you know, you can't build right now. And the only thing you could build was, I thought was, well, I'm gonna let somebody else try that first, because that doesn't seem like that's what they're gonna let me do. So I don't like to be the first one on new zoning, but I guess consistency in the zoning is really what I'm trying to understand or try and get to, especially in the next 2 or 3 years, because I'm trying to do a couple things. And I think it probably ends up having to go through the process of getting reviewed. But I would like it more, just like if you read it and it says you can do it, that it shouldn't be something that gets somehow off to the side that you can't do it. I don't know, I guess that's my, I haven't been using this. I don't know what the timing is on it and all, but I like the grocery store over there, and then the way it all came about with contracts and things. It's just really hard to understand where we're going, and it doesn't seem very clear about how we let things get where they're at. To get things like a grocery store that we've been trying to do for 40 years, get a grocery store in the village. And that was one of the ways to solve it, put a bunch of people around a store and maybe we can have a grocery store. I'm not sure. But then also people that work in the area, if we're gonna have restaurants and some things like that. And I guess there's one other thing I'd like to try, because I was trying to do that way before the 4th Street thing, is try and get in a world-class theater where you can have plays and things like that, where the kids can use it, where the whole state can use it. Because if we can put together again something like 9 to 12 acres, which you can't find very often, and then promote it in that way, I think it would be much more of a base tenant for the whole area.
The speaker's time has expired.
Right. So then you can promote restaurants and other things that we can all enjoy. So somehow get that kind of funding from the state and the county and us, the village, involved in it. So I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Darnell, do we have anyone signed up from the online? No, Zoom's not working. Is there anyone else who is not signed up who wishes to come up and speak on? No, you have to come up, state your name and address. No, we don't do a pledge.
At the trustee meeting, but not at the planning and zoning.
Okay, then the floor is closed. Moving out of the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item A, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections or comments from the commissioners on the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
On page 2, line 36, it currently reads, motion, Commissioner Homan moved to approve with conditions. We need to clarify that. That was with the conditions recommended by staff.
All right, we will make sure we make that change. Are there any other comments on the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes with the small addendum pointed out by Commissioner Holman.
Is there a
Page
second?
2, line 36.
I'll second that.
All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Commissioner Holman?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez?
Yes.
Commissioner Edward? Yes. Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carries unanimously. Public hearing and applications. Will all those who will be speaking before the commission tonight please stand up to be sworn in?
Barry would stand, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Okay, we're gonna move to item A, V 2306, SDP 1901 amendment. A request by David Newman for a minor amendment to an existing approved site development plan for building additions less than 20% of the existing building area is allowed by 9.2.25 D6 minor site plan amendments. This property is located at 7203 4th Street Northwest, also known as 7201, 7209 4th Street Northwest, the northwest corner of 4th Street and Royale, Los Ranchos, New Mexico 87107, and is legally described as Lot 7, Zia View Subdivision, Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque. The property contains .5227 acres more or less. Are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this item? Director Rubin, may we have the planning report?
Thank you, Chairman. The request in front of you is for modifications to an existing approved site development plan to authorize building additions of less than 20% of the existing building area, an alternate landscaping plan, outdoor seating area, and changes to the off-street parking layout as allowed by 9.2.25 D6 minor site plan amendments. The property is located at the northwest corner of 4th Street and Roll, and the applicant is requesting approval to construct a 177.5 square foot attached shade structure addition to the south side of the existing building, as well as a 275 square foot attached covered porch addition to the east side of the existing building. The existing building is 6,244 square feet in area, and the proposed addition will result in the net increase of 7.2%. Additionally, the applicant seeks approval of an alternate landscaping plan, outdoor seating area, and changes to the off-street parking layout. The proposed additions are less than 20%, as I've stated, allowed by the zoning code, and the other changes to the site development plan appear to be consistent with the village standards. Specifically, the changes to the landscaping plan center on the relocation of the trees and vegetation from the western property line to areas throughout the site and toward the east. The total proposed landscape area, 3,510 square feet, meets the 20% required by the code and includes native species of trees, shrubs, and ornamental grasses. A new 1,000 square foot outdoor seating area is proposed on the west side of the existing building in conjunction with a future craft distillery business. But I would like to point out that the liquor license for that business was previously approved by the Board of Trustees at the December meeting, and that is not the subject of this request. The addition of this seating area resulted in changes to the off-street parking layout on the site as a looped traffic pattern from 4th Street around the existing building and a one-way driveway exiting on Roll Road is now planned. With the mix of existing retail uses and future craft distillery business, as well as an approved shared parking agreement, village parking standards will be met. The department would like to recommend approval of the proposed minor amendment to the existing commercial site development plan in the C1 zone in the 4th Street character area, with the findings and conditions included in your report, and one additional condition of approval that reads, existing signs shall meet all applicable ordinance requirements. All new proposed signs shall be reviewed and approved under the separate established village permitting processes. If you would like to approve with that condition, please make sure that you say that in the motion. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Are there any commissioners who have questions for Director Rubin?
I have some questions. The construction on this site had begun. Oh, sorry about
Speak into
that.
your microphone.
Hello.
Construction on this site had begun in question on the improvement that they're seeking approval for. It's been going on for like 2 years. And so I guess why was that allowed to happen, and what is the result of this application relative to construction going on before without a permit?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Edward. So the reason why this came through this process is because of a red tag on construction that had been going on without a permit. I can't speak to the length of that time period, but it did come to our attention, and so that's why we brought the applicant into the process. And through that, the applicant had wanted to make sure that they made some other changes as well, such as the parking to accommodate the new uses.
Okay. And then it appears as though that there's still construction going on the site. Is that the case?
I'm not aware if the construction is currently going on. It was red tagged so as to stop it.
Okay.
Any further questions? Speak into your microphone, please.
Thank you. Chair Michelson, is it possible to ask the applicant a question or only
Yes,
the
that's the
director?
next thing we're going to do.
Thank you.
Is the applicant present? I am. Would you please come up? State your name and address for the record.
David Newman, 504 Mary's Way, Northwest, Los Ranchos, New Mexico, 87107.
Would you like to speak about your application before questions are asked, or do you want to go directly to questions?
I could answer some of Mr. Edwards' questions or comments. There has not been construction going on at the property for 2 years. I started to put the awning, so there's an awning on the front part of the property, and I wanted to extend the awning to the end of the building to make it look more symmetrical. I was not aware that I needed a permit to extend the awning on the front of the building. And in doing so, I was red tagged by the village because I needed a permit. Since getting red tagged, I've come to the planning and zoning and have followed all of the rules and the codes and made sure that I've done things appropriately to address the red tag. So I've owned the building for 2 or 3 years. I had extended the awning on the north side of the property, and I came to the village to extend that awning, and they told me I did not need a permit. So there was a precedent in my mind that I was okay to extend it on the other end of the building. And learning that it was, that I understand now that I should have requested a permit, but, here I am. And so just to add, with the 4th Street project, I've met with the village to talk about what that's going to do to my parking in the front of the building. And so I've tried to, being that I had to update my site plan with this change, I've tried to address all of the other changes that are coming in the next couple of years to really make the property function as best as possible. And, all of the changes that I'm proposing, hopefully make the building look nicer, more aesthetically pleasing, more fitting with how other buildings look in the village with columns and nice portals. So my intentions have been just to, make the building look nicer, make it something that I'm more proud of, and hopefully something that the villages would be proud of when it's finished. I'm not sure if I answered the questions, but I'm happy to address any.
Commissioner Baldwin, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. In the packet, the site plan, on the west end of the property, there currently is an existing wall. And it looks like on the site plan is that a wall that is extended, or is that the existing wall remaining where it is?
The main wall that separates the residential from the commercial, the west wall, that wall has been there. So I previously I developed the property. The four lots in the back and the front property, there was a trailer park behind the commercial properties before, and I developed that into a subdivision. So I'm familiar with the planning and zoning, and I've worked in doing that with the village, but the wall was there as part of the previous development.
So there will still be a buffering wall on the west end of the property?
There will be, yes.
Thank you. Second question, if I may?
Pardon?
Second
Oh,
question?
yes.
Okay. You now have a travel lane that comes entrance on Fourth, moves around the west side of the building, and exits out onto rail, correct?
Can you
According
repeat?
to the site plan. So if I were to
The
come...
proposed plan? Yes.
Okay, so one of the things that I know has been helpful in my neighborhood, El Paraíso, there's a little corner commercial area right there where it has an entrance on Fourth and then an exit on El Paraíso.
Okay.
And there's signage there that says left turn only. In other words, you're moving people back to Fourth to move to various parts of the village. And it says specifically no right turn. So it reduces any sort of impact of people leaving the property late at night and heading into the neighborhood and head back to Fourth. Would that be something you'd be amenable to add?
Absolutely. Yeah, anything that makes things safer and more organized, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. No other questions. Thank you, Chair.
Any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner Martinez?
And it goes to Maida also with what we're trying over here. It sounds like what you're agreeable to what she's talking about, but is that something that we need to do with the approval?
Chairman and Commissioner Martinez, I would recommend adding it as a condition of approval so that it's on the record.
We'd be adding of signs? Is that what you, okay.
It's good to learn from the past and existing, so, yeah, it's a great idea.
Are there any more questions from the
Yeah,
commission?
I have a question, if I may. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So you said you developed the land immediately to the west. And I got to say, with much dismay, that place is highly unattractive. There are weeds that are at least 2 feet taller than the wall. It's a persistently neglected project, and it bothers me that construction occurred to this with the best of intentions without a permit, and we've got a property that you had your hand involved in and maybe still do, and it's not maintained at all. I don't have any assurance from the track record from which you've described that this project will be kept and maintained to the standards of the drawings that are presented in front of us. What assurances are we going to have, and what can we put in place?
Would that question be for me? I can address it, Chairman and Commissioner Edward. So that would be through the same process that the applicant went through to begin with. That would be through our code enforcement. These plans are something that the village can go out and talk to property owners about and say, you know, you agreed to do these things, you were approved to do these things, you need to do them, or come back in to the commission and, you know, try to make another plan if that's a better idea for you. But that's the mechanism, is code enforcement.
Because it's lacking.
I'm not the owner of the property, the lots behind the commercial property. I'm not the owner of those. But I'm sure if you look at the front properties, I have a landscaping company that maintains the property regularly. And I've never received a complaint on the front properties of any kind of disorder or something not looking nice or proper, or so I don't feel like that issue should be addressed to me.
Just to the extent that you said you developed it, and I didn't know if you still had a hand involved in that.
Yeah, there were trailers back there before. I think what's there looks nicer than the trailers that were there.
I've lived all there my entire life. I know what it looked like.
Okay, good.
I have another question. There's persistent flooding in a minor sense right there in Roll. And it says on the plan here that there's an existing box for a drainage. It's item number 21. I mean, is that non-operative? Is that supposed to be solving the collection of water that occurs on Roll? And does this plan address water collection and flooding? Or is that going to be part of the 4th Street plan?
Chairman, Commissioner Edward, I'm not sure that I can speak to that. I can field the question to Maria at a future date to field about, the drainage on 4th Street. If it's part of a future phase of 4th Street, drainage, to my knowledge, is contemplated within the right-of-way. But I can't speak to that box necessarily.
It's far enough to the west of 4th Street. I don't know if the 4th Street plan will solve it, because I haven't seen how far west of 4th Street that it comes, but I mean, it's meaningful, and to the degree that he's going to maybe be hardscaping. Are you going to be hardscaping?
No, there will not be any hardscaping.
Okay. And so what is your plan for drainage?
All of that was addressed in the site plan. It's addressed.
Okay.
And Chairman and Commissioner, if I could add, condition number 4 for approval is surface water from the property shall be discharged in accordance with the village stormwater management standards, including the prohibition of discharge onto Roll Road.
Okay.
So the applicant will need to address that.
And has P&M signed off that their construction actually almost comes to the point that it's touching a P&M pole? Has that all been approved?
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Can I keep asking questions?
Yeah?
Thank you. So a lot of people in the village drive trucks, and you have 2 different sizes of parking spaces, and I generally find that if you drive a truck, you end up taking 2 spots as opposed to 1. Are these sites adequate? I mean, what is the sizing of these parking spaces, and do they even address the needs of the vehicles that are?
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, let me scroll over to the site plan, but they do meet the standards of the village.
Because there's smaller ones in front and larger ones in back.
That's something that the village allows, to place those bumpers within the parking spot so that they are to spec.
Okay. And then where's the entrance for these businesses going to be? It looks like that they might be in the back. Is that where the entrances are going to be, or in the front?
I guess it would be business dependent. They could be entrances in both locations, front and back.
If I didn't have a cousin that was confined to a wheelchair, I might not be so sensitive about this, but having all the handicap spots on one side of the building, I would maybe encourage or suggest handicap on one side and one on the other.
That's a good observation.
That's
Is that a question? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
I'm new at this.
That's something that, I suppose could be added as a condition of approval. But, yeah. Noted.
I guess having them in the front, it is hardscaped, which may make it more accessible or easier to enter in the front. With the back being gravel, I'm not sure. I guess I would have to put some cement back there to accommodate that. So I'm trying to avoid cement anywhere I can.
Okay. And the last thing that I was going to ask a question about, you talked about moving trees. There are no trees. I don't know what trees are being moved.
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, this would be in contrast to the existing plan that is on the books. So that may not reflect what is on the ground, but there is a condition of approval, but let me find it for you, that landscaping be installed within a certain amount of time. So this has not occurred to date, from what I understand.
Okay.
This would address that.
So is the prior plan in our package or just the one that's up for approval?
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, only the new one is included in the packet at this time.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah.
Any further questions?
I guess the thing that we opened the can of worms with handicap, and I do agree that handicap is a critical part over here. My question to Maida is the guidelines that they took to be approved for parking places also inclusive of handicap per square footage?
The amount of, Chairman and Commissioner Martinez, the amount of provided handicap parking is sufficient per our code. And I would defer to the hardscape versus gravel in terms of functionality. You want it close to the entrances, and I believe the entrances would be primarily on 4th Street and potentially a second entrance in the back. Is that correct?
There could be.
There could be.
There could be.
But primarily it runs on 4th
Today,
Street.
today they're all on 4th Street. But I don't know, with the changes coming on 4th Street and the changes to the parking in the front, some business owners may find it nice to have parking in the entrances in the back as well. So today, it's only in the front.
I guess my main concern is that as we speak today, we're speaking about what's happening today, not down the road. Is what is approved with the square footage that he has today approved with the handicap versus square footage parking?
So Chairman and Commissioner Martinez, yes, it meets the standards.
I have one additional question, if I may. So it talks about an outdoor seating area. Where is that going to be on your thing, on your site plan here, Mr. Newman?
So on the very south side of the property, which is 7201 4th Street, it'd be directly behind 7201 4th Street. It'd be directly behind the very south end of the building, to the west.
And is there any kind of a sound buffer such that if people are having fun, and I like to have fun, and I'm glad you're making an investment in our community to make it look nicer, but nonetheless, we have to mingle together as a community. What are you going to plan to do about noise abatement?
I don't have an answer for that.
If I may interject, this is in relation to the liquor license and not this application, but I'm going to mess up this condition of approval. But there was a time of night that amplified music could not go beyond in conjunction with the liquor license. So that doesn't speak to the other potential businesses, but just so you're aware.
I was wondering more from a structural standpoint, if there was some sort of either a landscaping element or a structural element that would create some degree of privacy for not just the neighbors, but for the patrons.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this may help clear this up. Mr. Newman, what is the height of the wall on that west side?
I don't know the exact height of the wall, but it's approximately 6 foot.
Okay, so there is a level of...
It's as high as it can be within the code. And I believe that's 6 foot. It's either 5 feet or 6 feet.
Looks more like 5.
Whatever the maximum height is allowed by code is what it is.
Any further questions from the commissioners? Okay, we have 3 people signed up to speak on this. I'm going to first ask Zach Hulme to come up and speak. Please state your name and address.
Commissioners, thank you. My name's Zachary Hume. My address is 2926 Camillo Lane, Northwest Albuquerque. I am one of the tenants in Mr. Newman's building. I'm the proprietor of the distillery that's going in the southernmost location. Just before I address some of these questions you guys had, I think that what David is doing design-wise, as with a student and a practitioner of architecture, is in keeping with the character of the village and the rural New Mexican construction style. I think he's chosen fits well, and I think it's a real upgrade to the front of the building, a facelift, and the site plan as it fits with the what you guys are going to be doing on 4th Street, I think works really well. So you're talking about the sound, and so we're planning on having a patio on the west side, and so there's the 5 or 6 foot high adobe wall to the west. There's the drive aisle, and then we will have a fence 5 or 6 feet tall on the west, or entirely enclosing our property, and I'm planning on putting vines and trees. My vision for the patio is that it's a densely planted pastoral area with sort of small seating spots surrounded by planting, and possibly some water features like trickling water noises, stuff like that. And yeah, the hearing we had a month or so ago, they asked that there was a condition that no amplified music past 10 o'clock, which seemed reasonable to me. I don't envision us being open past 10 o'clock very often, but I could see it happening. But as a general rule, the patrons at my establishment downtown, it's pretty snoozy during the week at 10 o'clock. On the weekends, a little busier. But yeah, any questions?
I'm just curious, what's your business downtown?
It's called Still Spirits. We're across from Marble Brewery. It's 45-seat tasting room and attached production space.
Yeah, it's a very nice space, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're proud of it.
Any other questions? All right, the next speaker is Carl Steer.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Sorry.
Name and address.
Nancy Starr, 513 Roll. So we're the house directly west of what's planning to go in. We got signatures from about 15, 16 people that are against this. And also I'd like to mention, I know this isn't the liquor license, but we were all going to be at that meeting, but we were told it was canceled. Everyone that's on this list that signed that is against a hard liquor establishment going in there. And now with this portico that they're planning, and I appreciate what you said about making right-hand turns, but there's not going to be a policeman out there. That means those people are going into our neighborhood. You know, and a lot of people can't handle their liquor. I mean, maybe many can, but a lot can't. I mean, who's going to be policing that? A lot of people that live on Roll have been there a lot longer than Carl and I. We've been there since 2006. A lot of people there a long, long time are against this. You know, there's, you know, families, children, people walking, people on bikes. You can't control how people drink. I mean, it's not even beer and wine. It's hard liquor is what we were told. And as far as parking, you all think that that might be sufficient? No, we were told that Moses is going to let them park over there. So, you know, the whole ambience of Roll Road is going to change if you allow this to go on. We are just totally, I don't think I need to read this. I think you all have copies of our petition. It just seems like the village is changing, and it's really sad that that's what's going on Roll. I'd like to ask each of you, would you like a hard liquor establishment on your block? I mean, my gosh, they could have put a nice big place on Mary's Way, that nice big building that's vacant and nobody's in it. You know, they could have done something over there and had a lot of parking. But no, not on a residential street. And maybe if you deny them putting the portico in and all the other things that they're planning there, maybe it would at least confine people in there. Maybe there wouldn't be so many people going in and drinking. I don't know, do you want to add anything? It's very alarming for us, the people that signed this petition.
We received in the mail a notice from you that because we lived pretty close to the property in question, it was up to us to come here and vote no on this. And I didn't want to speak for the neighborhood, so we went to the neighbors. Not one of them were for this. Not one of them.
I don't know how
In fact,
it
they're all
got-
pretty disgusted.
Yeah, I don't know how that got passed, really, I
Yeah.
don't. I beg to differ with you. We were not we were notified that the meeting was canceled because we already had our petition in place, and that was just unfair. We all feel like we were kind of skunked on this deal because we were gonna vote against it. I mean, maybe it wouldn't have mattered. I was in contact with planning and zoning. I was here quite a bit, asking them about the meetings and was it even worth it, to do a petition, and they said, yes, let your feelings be noted, but it still got passed anyway, and that's pretty sad, I think, that this all happened, but I really ask you not to approve what they're asking for now. I appreciate you saying about that lot next to us, because we're the ones that have to look at it every day. It isn't taken care of. I don't know, I thought that it was a partnership there, but they don't take care of it. And it's, I know that's against plan or code or whatever it is, that you're supposed to take care of your weeds. But I think our time is pretty well up. That's all we have to say,
Thank you.
that you just go against it.
Do you have any speakers online? Is there anyone else who is not signed up who wants to come up and speak on this? Okay, then the floor is closed.
You have a
You've got
speaker.
Camille, you haven't done. Oh, she's not on there. Oh, she wasn't sworn.
I stood up to be sworn in. Camille Vados, 427 El Paraíso Road, Los Ranchos, New Mexico, 87107. And for the sake of establishments in the El Paraíso Neighborhood Association area, the reason there is no egress or ingress into the neighborhood is to keep the traffic down and to keep it safe. And if that is not a consideration, all down 4th Street and Roa's part of 4th Street, there's neighborhoods with children, with elderly or senior people. I'm senior, and safety is a concern, and traffic is a concern. All down 4th Street, there's breweries, there's tap rooms. That seems to be, what's popular these days. Well, what about just the village ambiance? It's changing, and it will, and it has, but safety is a concern. When you look at what comes in and what comes out of these establishments, especially if it's an alcoholic establishment. Thank you.
Okay, then the floor is closed. Would the applicant like to respond to any of these comments? Are there any further comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Edwards.
So, the issue of signs and what you had mentioned about a sign and traffic going a certain way. Signs, I think, are limitedly effective by evidence of the number of people who speed. And I think that a question I would have, and this would go to Maida and to the property owner, is my computer froze. froze up. To what degree in the site plan can you create a structural feature such that you're gonna take off the front right tire of your car if you try and make a hard right coming out of that back driveway?
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, I'm not the right person to ask to design that, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But I've seen a lot of folks make a lot of very interesting turns when they really set their mind to it, so I'm not sure. I think the signage could potentially help reduce the amount of people in the neighborhood. Remember, these are public roads, but I do see the merit of pointing people back toward 4th Street. That might help a lot. But I'm not sure I can answer your question.
Well, to the degree that's coming out at a 90 degree, and if it was angled, maybe the last 10 feet, that it's not a smack on the butt, but certainly a little bit of a nudge. And I have one other question. What is the other property actually in question that has the parking arrangement with?
Moses, to
Moses?
the south.
Yeah,
And does that arrangement allow for how many spots to be used?
I'm going to misquote this, 10 parking spaces. They've met with staff and it meets the review criteria. It really is promoted in the code to do shared parking agreements along 4th Street.
Okay. Do I refer to you as chairman?
Pardon?
Do I refer to you as chairman?
I hope so.
Chairman Michelson, I would like to, as a part of this, find a way to make a win-win for everybody. And to the extent that somebody's wanting to pour investment dollars into our community to make it nicer, that building has been there for a long time and hasn't always had the nicest of curbs appeal, despite how nice maybe some of the business owners were within that facility. I would like to maybe put some sort of a design element and criteria that it doesn't come straight out and it actually, it's telling the driver, man, you're going to 4th Street. You're not coming down around the corner to my house.
This is not on 4th Street you're talking about?
Well, the design path for his site plan.
No, but the thing that you want to put up, what street is it on?
It would be on Roll. It would be on Roll. It'd actually be on his property that comes out onto Roll. And it wouldn't, you could probably put a tree there and put a triangular island and then push the cars in that direction. Probably half of them don't follow it, but half of them do. And I think these neighbors that have come in here have some valid concerns because I guarantee you that street will probably get 5 more speed humps on it if it doesn't work. And
would the applicant like to address that question?
I think it's all really good feedback. I think maybe it would be better for the entrance to be on Roel and the exit back into 4th Street. I think that might be better based on the feedback that I'm hearing. So I'm more than willing to do that. I don't know how that affects the site plan or if that would be a condition of the site plan, but maybe it's better if it goes the opposite direction than how it's planned. So I'm more than willing to make that change if it feels to me like that feedback feeds into that being a better solution.
I appreciate your willingness to do that.
Director Rubin?
So, Mr. Chairman, there's a couple ways to proceed. If there are a lot of changes to the site plan, it would be up to the commission whether you would want to condition those things for approval and it goes back to staff for review, or if you want to see it again. But I also just want to point out that none of the improvements can be in the right of way. So that would be on the property.
Right.
Just to clarify.
So the applicant is saying that he's willing to have the entrance on Rail and the exit on Fourth.
It seems like that would be more appropriate based on the feedback.
Commissioner Holman?
Mr. Chairman, Maida, I have a question. When was the original site plan approved and who approved it?
I don't have that in front of me. Brennan, do you recall? 2019.
Oh, it's been a while. Okay. I would be really remiss, I understand that the site plan as it currently had existed, granted, we're looking at a few minor modifications today with some great suggestions for additional improvements. But I have to say that I am very in line with my compassion for the concerns of some of the residents. Understanding that what is already out there has been approved, and you said the alcohol license has already been approved. So just my own reflection, I live next door to, what's the name of the darn place? Hops. And thank you. And it's been a total nightmare because there's not enough parking, and they're constantly parking in our commercial parking lot up front, which our insurance tells us that they can't do because, you know, it puts the other owner, like Moses, would be basically in jeopardy if somebody had an accident or something and they'd been parking in their parking. So there's concerns. I'm just feeling for the people that are around this, but please recognize that what's being asked of us is to approve something that's basically all within our ordinances. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Martinez?
I want to reflect on you because really what we did is we went off tangent tonight. And I respect and I appreciate because you're hearing concerns and reality that happened. But what's in front of us tonight is totally different than a lot of things that's coming up in front of us. Ours is about setbacks. Ours is about et cetera. I think that what we've been grateful in a conversation that opens up opportunities to redirect is that what's given to us to approve or disapprove has taken a direction of everything as you define. The setbacks, they've done their diligence. Everything is of our ability, and this is about setbacks, et cetera, is all that we can. Now, did we go in a better direction towards traffic? I think so.
Yes.
And so I think that that's what we have to take advantage of. And within our parameters of what we can do addendums to what we can basically touch base with. Because all the concerns that we're hearing, we have no ability to touch those at all.
You'll have to come to the microphone.
Name and address.
Since you're talking about this parking issue, and Moses has an agreement with parking, what are you gonna do about having people get in their car there and go down Roll?
The situation that we have has nothing to do with parking. What we have in front of us.
I think we're talking public safety here.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to help us understand is what's in front of us to approve or disapprove is about specificness with what they want to do with part of their building. And that's what's in front of us. There absolutely is nothing in front of us about parking. There's absolutely nothing in front of us about Moses. And so we can't address those because it's not in front of us. All we can do.
Please come up to the microphone.
Well, I'm just concerned because, you know, he's saying, that other gentleman said, you know, 10 o'clock, and then the other guy comes up and says, yeah, but downtown, he has his little thing, and sometimes it goes a little more. So, you know, we're kind of, you know, the village to us was just kind of a serene, rural neighborhood to buy a home in, and you want to see it preserved. That is not going to be, I'm just so furious that we were told that was canceled, and we didn't have a chance to even vote. But at least if they can't put outside seating in. that may help a little bit with the noise, and you have control over that, I think.
We don't, ma'am. And that's why I'm trying to explain to you is that we all have empathy for you. We all have structures in their backyard that are affecting the same way that you're talking about. But what's in front of us tonight, what we have to vote on tonight is a totally different, separate entity. And I think that that's what we're trying to present to you.
Well, but aren't you voting on the south side portico? Isn't that what, that's not approved yet. It was my understanding that was what was up for tonight.
What is on our agenda is on the south side of the structural of the building itself.
Right. For the,
Not-
well, I understood that they were gonna put outside seating there.
But from what I understand, that's not on our table tonight. Our table is about the south side of that building.
Which
And
is
the-
roll.
But it's only the south side. It absolutely has nothing to do with the seating and what they're gonna be doing.
Okay, we think discussion is closed. Thank you.
All I urge is that you folks vote like this is in your neighborhood. Okay? Not just say those poor people on roll are stuck. Thank you.
Commissioner Barrow.
My understanding, and please clarify this, Commissioner Rubin, if you would. We are asked, as my fellow commissioner, Mr. Martinez, just said, but I have a slightly broader question. We're asked only a very small question tonight. What we can vote on is about a very small portion of what's been discussed. I believe, should we decline this, does it simply close that small area of expansion, the outside southern seating area, or will it send the whole concept back? There have been a lot of, I think, coherent objections, but the objections are, as Commissioner Martinez pointed out, not what we can talk to or vote on particularly. How do we handle this? Can you give some guidance?
So Chairman Michelson and Commissioner Barrow, the items before you are the site design, right? So in this, they proposed some changes to, back angle parking that has to do with coordinating with 4th Street with the project, the awnings, where the landscaping goes. So those are the site development plan elements. So if you deny this application, those improvements can't take place. Again, that doesn't affect the liquor license or basically the liquor license or the shared parking agreement. However, it does affect the elements of the site with what can be improved. So again, how to proceed is up to you. This could be conditioned, so there can be elements added that you would like to say, as a condition of approval, I would like to move to say that they need to do X, Y, and Z. That's one option.
Okay, and the parking was not one of your conditions that you suggested here. And we can't address that?
Chairman and Commissioners, so the shared parking agreement was previously approved, and that's not the subject of tonight's request. Parking on the site is part of the request, and so that's why the discussion was where the entrance is, all of that stuff. So, yeah.
Beyond the parking, the access and exit from the site.
Commissioner Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maida, so if we were to approve or make suggestions for additions, we would need to state on this outdoor seating area that there would be some kind of a fencing or buffering within the patio area to help eliminate some of the carryover sound to buffer?
Chairman and Commissioner Homan, that is a condition of approval that the commission can consider and vote on.
Okay, that would, although they would still have to come into the village and seek approval for such a fence or structure for that noise abatement, correct?
Correct.
Commissioner Baldwin? Commissioner Baldwin?
Thank you. As we look at the elements of this particular site plan, I want to confirm, because I'm not a traffic engineer, and Director Rubin, I'm not sure if you can speak to this, but I would just want to confirm that it is allowable to change the direction of the travel lane to enter on Rail and exit on Fourth. I don't know that there would be a problem, but that would be something I wouldn't want us to recommend, something that isn't doable on AASHTO or any other form. So I don't know if you have an answer to that or not.
Chairman and Commissioner Baldwin, so I am also not a traffic engineer. However, I don't think that would be an issue, but I think it's worth considering that the access onto the property from 4th Street, there will be direct access to the front parking via the back-angled parking, and that is where the business fronts, right? So that might be more intuitive to turn from 4th Street into the property. That's my sense, but that may be incorrect. Also, funneling folks primarily onto the residential road might be counterintuitive and lead more people onto the residential road, even though their intent would be going into the building. So I think it's either way, they would be using that road, and I think ways to funnel them back to 4th Street might be appropriate, or I don't know that the directionality will accomplish that.
Okay.
But it's up to you guys.
The follow-up to that is, I find that signage is much more educational if it's accompanied by enforcement in a period of time. And so I would expect that if there was signage that said left turn only to get back to Fourth if the exit is still on Rail, and no right turn, that would be enforced, at least in a preliminary fashion, so that gets imprinted for the first period of time after the facility was opened. If in fact it's okay to reverse direction, and I would agree there, I think there's some issues with having the initial pattern into the facility be a turn onto Rail or, one direction or another. I would just want to make sure that we, to your point, don't do anything that would end up creating an impediment in the right-of-way for ped traffic and other things, or a sightline problem, being able to exit. I'm open to either way. I think it is reasonable to have, Fourth is Route 66, it's our main street. It should have vibrancy of commercial. That is in the master plan and it's in the code. How we create those buffers, I think is really what's before us on this particular one. It's been through the ringer on a number of other levels. And so how we do that, I think, is important. I would urge us to include conditions that do that buffering and that safety piece and that protection of the neighborhood as much as possible.
Does the applicant have any further statements?
I'm not sure that we even have to have an entrance or an exit onto Roel. I'm open to conditions that we're able to meet our parking requirements. It just seemed to be the safest and most efficient way for traffic to come in and out. So,
I would tend to agree.
Okay.
I think a direct line and not backing in and out and having people at odds with each other. The other point that I would like to ask for the director is, obviously, the shared parking agreement is something that is your purview, it's not before us. just as a commentary, I think shared parking is an incredibly important element of how we're going to be dealing with parking issues on Fourth. And having robust agreements. I mean, think about all the places that are closed at night and there is volume of parking. Doing it the right way, as robustly as possible, I think is incredibly important, so that we ensure that people aren't heading off into the neighborhood or in places where they shouldn't be parking because it just happens to be nearby. So anything we can do to make that shared agreement more robust in getting traffic back to Fourth, I would encourage us to do now and in the future.
Okay, the floor is closed now. Is there a motion to approve or disapprove SDP 1901 amendment?
I would like to make a motion, I guess, if no one else is going to.
Go right ahead. It's going to be tough to articulate.
It is, particularly since my computer just, removed the password. So let me get to that page of the, yes, here it is, right here. I would like to move approval of the proposed minor amendment to the existing commercial site development plan in the C1 zone of 4th Street character area with the staff finding and conditions listed in the report, plus the signage condition made by Director Rubin at the front end, the signage requirements related to returning traffic to 4th rather than into the neighborhood, and also encouraging this and future shared parking agreements to be robustly enforced, as well as the signage to turn to 4th. Complicated, but close.
Commissioner Baldwin has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment.
Please.
Are you going to make a second?
Sure, I'll second with the friendly amendment
Okay.
suggested. Would you consider adding some kind of a noise abatement structure around the patio area for the outdoor seating?
Absolutely.
Was that a second from Mary?
Yes.
That's a second.
Second.
Commissioner Martinez.
This is more. Well, I don't know if it's time for the discussion, but I think that what we have that we're kind of leaving off, that I think that we have agreed upon, especially from your side and especially from your side from Roe, is I think that there needs to be some study of what is the best, because with what he's saying and what we're hearing, traffic is a situation. So if we're gonna get it, might as well just get it right the first time instead of just saying in and out. If he feels and we feel that there needs to be a little bit more study on which way it should go, that might be something that we needed added to yours, that either allow it to be in and out signage, and or should we have a discussion of what is the best for the community and the signage for the community? Because once you approve it,
I don't see how any of us can do a traffic study or ask anyone else to do it. It doesn't make sense to me.
it's not this traffic study, it's what is more beneficial. Because what we're doing now is we're playing with an idea of one-way and one-way in signage.
But what you're thinking about is beneficial, but there has to be a study to determine of what you're thinking is beneficial or not beneficial.
Okay, I just wanted to, with what everybody's saying, I think that my point is, once we approve it, that's what it is. And if we leave it out for, let's have it, maybe let me reverse and say not a study, but a discussion of what is the best pathway for the roadway in and out, would be probably something that, what I don't want to do is don't want it to be approved and later on say, darn it, we should have talked about it, and we should have done it this other way. And that's just my point.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you so much. I think we're trying to overcomplicate something that it's not our place to do that. He could have the traffic could go either way, and he's trying to, in his mind as the property owner, determine what would be the best way. We had a brief conversation about it. He's willing to consider doing it a different way, but he could do either way, and it would be completely up to him. It's really not on us to mandate which direction the traffic flows. And a study would be expensive and would also delay the project. And as you know, in development, time is money. And I think that would put on him something that it's not really our place to require. Although, I mean, it's a wonderful idea. I'm not arguing with you at all about that, but I just think we're trying to overcomplicate something.
Commissioner Holman.
While I agree with my fellow commissioner, I would just defer back, and I know you said you weren't familiar with what was approved or the basis of it back in 2019, but is that designated roadway, the area beyond the end of the parking spaces, is it large enough for a two-way traffic?
Chairman and Commissioner Holman, for two-way, as proposed, it is not wide enough from my understanding. So this is a way to add parking and accommodate that as much as possible on site. So it also serves that purpose.
So for safety, it looks like it's a one-way. Okay.
So do we just clarify that it passes?
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Baldwin, seconded by Commissioner Holman with conditions. I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Commissioner Holman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barrow.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez.
Yes.
Commissioner Edward.
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin.
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carries unanimously. Let the record show that the public hearing, item 4A, a request by David Newman for a minor amendment to an existing approved site development, is formally closed. We'll move now to item B, VA 2308, a request by Yolanda Montoya with RM Design Inc., agent for John Mosier, for a variance from 9.210 E2A, requiring a 10-foot yard setback distance to allow for an addition to an existing single-family dwelling to be just 5 feet, 1.5 inches from the side property line. The property is located at 415 Pueblo Solano Road Northwest, Los Ranchos, New Mexico, 87107, and is legally described as Lot 5, Pueblo Solano Addition, all of Lot 5 excluding the west 50 feet. The property contains 0.5969 acres, more or less. Are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this item? No. Director Rubin, may we have the planning report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The item in front of you is a request for a variance from the 10-foot side yard setback requirement in the R2 zone in the 4th Street character area. The property is located at 415 Pueblo Solano Road. The owner is seeking a permit to construct an addition of 105 square feet utility room and a 504 square foot deck to an existing home. The home is currently located just 4 feet, 2.5 inches from the east side property line and appears to be non-conforming to the current 10-foot side yard setback requirement. The applicant is requesting a variance to the standard to allow the proposed utility room and deck to be 5 feet, 1/2 inches from the side property line. In their written justification letter, the owner indicates that the subject property is, quote, irregular or unusually narrow in shape, end quote, and that the lot is, quote, smaller and in size and width, quote, as compared to other properties in the surrounding area. The properties to the east and west are zoned to R2, while those to the north are zoned SU1, special use for planned residential development, and those to the south are zoned R2, one parcel with a special use permit for single-family dwelling, and 3 apartments, respectively. All properties are within the 4th Street character area. So the way staff reviews these applications has to do with first and foremost compliance with the master plan. One of the policies in the master plan is to enforce village zoning ordinance requirements. This policy supports the implementation of and adherence to established setback requirements of the R2 zone. While the existence of the home within the 10-foot side yard setback area appears to be non-conforming to current standards, 9.2.23 C of the zoning code is specific that additions to the non-conforming buildings must not increase the degree of non-conformity and comply with the village development regulations. An additional component of review is public interest and material adverse impacts on adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the community. One facet of public interest is conformity with the adopted goals and policies of the village master plan. As just noted, adherence to setback requirements ensures uniform, predictable growth patterns, prevents overcrowding of land, and promotes community safety standards. Non-compliance with current setback standards, especially when the need for the variance appears to be solely the design choice of the applicant, could be detrimental to adjacent properties, the neighborhood, and the community. The last component of review is unnecessary hardship criteria adherence. So for unnecessary hardship criteria, B1, staff finds that the reported physical characteristics of the lot, that it is irregular or unusually narrow in shape, and that it is smaller in size and width as compared to other properties in the surrounding area, do not result in an unnecessary hardship. The subject site meets the half-acre lot size requirement of the R2 zone and exceeds the 60-foot lot width standard in that zone. Compared to slightly larger lots in the neighborhood, comparison to slightly larger lots in the neighborhood is not relevant, as the size and width of the subject site does not result in it being exceptional by reason of physical characteristics of the land. Hardship criteria 1 through 4. Staff also finds that other relevant hardship factors are not achieved. Specifically, there do not appear to be any unique, exceptional characteristics associated with the property that result in the need for the variance. Additionally, the site is not irregular or unusually narrow in shape to limit the owner's use of the lot, and there does not appear to be circumstances associated with the lot which create a condition under which no reasonable use can be made of the land without the requested variance. The department recommends denial of variance V23-08, a request for a variance from 9.2.10 E2A, requiring a 10-foot side yard setback distance to allow an addition to an existing home to be just 5 feet 1/2 inches from the east side property line of the subject site in the R2 zone within the 4th Street character area, with the findings and with the findings included in your report. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commissioners for Director Rubin? Is the applicant present? I'm representing the applicant. Would you please come to the speaker stand and state your name and address?
My name is Mark Harmon. I'm a general contractor for this property, 415 Pueblo Solano. The existing property currently has a roof establishment, and all we're asking to do is fill that in. So we're not expanding anything. The property was built in 1934, and that's when there wasn't no setback requirements, and so that's why we're going for the variance.
Are there any questions from the commissioner for the applicant?
Is that fence on the property line?
Speak into the microphone.
Sorry. Is the fence on the property line?
Yes.
Because the roof overhang is maybe 12 inches from the property line. I don't know where 5 feet came from, or 4 feet, or even 3 feet. I mean, that house is, the drip line.
It's actually 4.5 feet from the roof line to the fence. Correct. That's what it is.
I don't see how that's possible. I was there today. I was there today, and I took pictures of it. It's, I know you told me not to do that. It might be 2 feet off the line. I mean, it's right on it. That's why I was wondering, is that fence really on the property line?
Yeah. I didn't install the fence, but I do know that the individuals that did it said they were putting it on on the property line, and they also got a permit to do that.
So Maida, do we actually have a stake boundary survey with setbacks drawn on?
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, we do not have that or require it. It is up to the applicant to adhere to these regulations as proposed, or the project as proposed and approved.
So if we don't have hard measured tolerances established by an engineer or surveyor, how do we really know?
So when an addition is going through the process to be built, it comes in for staff review, not on site. Staff actually go out and verify the setbacks during the process to try to ensure that it is built per the application. But that is standard practice from other communities as well.
It doesn't make it right.
Commissioner Baldwin.
Thank you, Chair Michelson. Question to the representative. As I look at the site plan, the new porch that would be added to the rear of the home would extend the full width of the home.
Correct.
Thank you. What that does is decrease compliance with the setback because it's adding an additional encroachment into the setback. So this isn't just filling in the space of, or underneath the roof line. It would be increasing the non-compliance of the condition.
I have a quick question. Is this new deck that's being built, what is its construction standard to the extent that somebody's not going to try and then fill that in at some later date?
I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
Okay. So is it being built to a construction standard that you could actually build something on top of it without it failing?
No,
It's not?
no.
Any other questions for the applicant? Any other discussion by the commissioners? Commissioner Smith.
Chair Mock, can I ask one question of this gentleman here? Is there any special reason that they're doing this? At times we've had folks come in and there's some kind of special consideration that they're taking on a project because someone in the family's become disabled or to a point where okay.
I can't speak to that. I'm really just the general contractor. So I do know that when they purchased the property, they actually the owners, where they currently reside or currently own is on Pueblo Solano as well. So this is their second home on Pueblo Solano, and they recently purchased it with the intent to move into it. And the owner was excited about just the view that he would have walking into the front and being able to see to the garden all the way in the back. And that was the reason for opening up everything in the back and making sure that as you came in, you could see all the vegetation that they were going to put in the backyard.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Commissioner Edward.
Yeah, one of the things, I'm looking at their deed here, I mean, to say that there's a hardship because it's too narrow, I mean, the deed clearly says in here, you're buying a lot and we're going to make it 50 feet narrower. And they bought this thing a year ago, and to the degree that, a buyer has to do their own due diligence, it doesn't seem to me that there was much basic due diligence done and that, hey, we're going to add on to this, we should check it out, that we should be doing this in advance of trying to throw it in our lap and ask for a permission slip after the fact. And if you take a look at other homes in the neighborhood across the street on 4th Street on Pueblo Solano, those lots are even narrower. They're a fraction of the size of the lots on this side of Pueblo Solano. Not just in depth, but in width.
Other questions by the commissioners? Commissioner Holman.
Mr. Chairman, I would move support of staff's recommendation to deny this request, as it definitely does not meet our code as indicated by Director Rubin, and the requested approval would further exacerbate an issue that is already out of our standards.
It's non-conformance. Okay, Commissioner Holman has moved to disapprove item.
I do want to say something.
Well, wait,
Can we discuss this?
not yet.
Okay, sorry.
To VA 2308. Is there a second?
Yes, I will second the motion.
Okay, we have the motion and a second. Now, is there any discussion? Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah, you know, and in driving around that neighborhood there, there's a lot of construction that's clearly occurred in the last 10 years for which some of those properties do not appear to be within is it 10 feet, Maida?
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, it would depend on the zoning. So in that zone, on properties in that area zoned the same, that would be the setback.
Yeah. I mean, there's a large two-car garage that appears to be under construction with stucco. It doesn't appear to be back. I think we have a lot of rogue construction that goes on in the village. It's honorable that this guy came in and tried to do it the honorable way.
Any further discussion by the commissioners? Okay, then it's closed. I'll call for a roll call vote to disapprove VA 2308. Commissioner Holman,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Edward,
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carries unanimously. Let the record show that public hearing item 4B, a request by David Newman for a minor amendment to an existing site development is denied.
Mr. Chairman, it's the variance item.
Pardon?
The variance item, not the site development plan
Okay.
item.
Variance item. I stand corrected. Okay, there's no old business, there's no new business.
There's no business.
Still have one
Okay,
more item.
there's new business. I didn't see that.
Yeah, adoption of resolution.
Okay. Commissioner Rubin?
Thank you, Chairman Michelson. So the resolution before you is Resolution 2024-1 P&Z. This is the Open Meetings Act resolution that occurs annually. It identifies the place of meetings, the place and the time of regular meetings, where we post for these meetings, how special meetings are communicated to the public, reconvened meetings, and meeting minutes, elections of officers. So that is the resolution before you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So is this a resolution we need to have a motion on and adopt?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Chairman Michelson, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2024-1-P&Z.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Commissioner Martison, a second. Commissioner Smith has made a motion. Commissioner Martinez has seconded. I'll roll call vote. Commissioner Holman?
Well, may we discuss this?
Yes.
I was doing the math on this, and I've been to a lot of different meetings, and I've heard some people here today talk about meetings. You know, I got to tell you what, I don't know how people can marshal their resources in such a short window of time. Considering that if you go down and it talks about the amount of time that is allowed to get meeting minutes drafted and prepared for a meeting is 10 working days. So if you're going to have a meeting and you're going to call a meeting and then shortly after have another meeting immediately following that, you wouldn't even have meeting minutes prepared that might be possibly reviewed at this next meeting, which is allowed to occur within less than 10 days. And I think that if you do the math, I'm unclear as to whether these are actual calendar days or working days.
Bless you.
Bless you. And I think that there's a lot of people in this community that don't feel as though their voices get heard because their lives are busy. And I think that I don't see any precedence unless somebody can give me an example of why a special meeting has to be ramrodded in so quickly.
Chairman Michelson, Commissioner Edward. So I believe that is from state statute. Those are the typical timelines for these meetings, including special meetings.
Is that a mandate that it has to be that long or that short?
That is the shortest, at least that long. So as soon as you know you need to call a special meeting, you have, at least that long to notice it. You want to do it as much time as you can, but that's per statute, I believe.
So, yeah, so you could do it that quickly, in other words.
Correct.
I'd like to think that we hold ourselves to a higher standard, and I would propose a longer period of time.
Also, I would, if I can interject, that is a very unique circumstance. I've never seen that happen for the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's more typical of the Board of Trustees. Yep. So we scoop up a lot of their regulations and again, per statute, but I would be hard pressed to figure out a circumstance that the commission would need to do that, although I think the commission needs the ability to do that. The reason why it's so short, again, is so that you can respond when something occurs.
I can appreciate that, but I also can appreciate the fact that I've lived in this village for the last couple of years, and there are people that are madder than a firecracker. And we've got a lot of litigation breathing down our neck in such a way that it's going to cost our village millions of dollars potentially, and I don't think that that's equitable for anybody. And I don't think that we should accept this provision in here with those short time deadlines. I think that we should give people a better opportunity to rally and speak out and have a chance to say something. And I'd like to know if Mr. Chappell has any legal reason to believe that providing a longer period of time is detrimental.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Edward, this is a required resolution that must be presented and adopted on an annual basis. And what the resolution is a commitment to follow the minimum standards of the Open Meeting Act. It has nothing to do with your practice of when you want to schedule things and that sort of things, but you are required to give this amendment to comply with the Open Meetings Acts. So this is a standard resolution to mandate compliance, and it's required to be adopted on an annual basis under the Act.
If I may, too,
yes.
I would add that this gives the Planning and Zoning Commission, it's a special tool to be used under very exceptional circumstances, which none of us have probably ever seen happen before, and we hope that we never did have to see them happen. But it gives a special tool just for special circumstances.
Yes.
Well, yeah, Ms. Smith, Commissioner Smith, I don't think it's a special tool. I think that this is a compliance standard with the Open Meetings Act. I was here for 13 years, and I don't ever remember calling a special meeting on an emergency basis. But as a practice under the Open Meetings Act, you're required to adopt a resolution which adopts a minimum standard under the Open Meetings Act. And that's what it is. It happens every January. Same one.
So there's no reason we couldn't have a better minimum standard?
You can establish as a commission, Commissioner Edwards, any standard that you would like in the operation of the commission, as long as it's not shorter than those in the Open Meetings Act.
Right. So I would propose that it be something more like 5 days.
And if I may, I'm trying to pull it up real quick, but I believe that that would be something that might belong better in the rules for the conducting business that is on the books. Let me pull it up real quick, if I may.
While you were looking at that, if I may just add, the special meeting, the 3 days, is something for it's a catastrophic emergency.
Right.
That may be the case, but I also know people who think of a lot of things that are catastrophic that really are not.
If I can make a note, there are two different things on the table here. There's a resolution that we are required to adopt annually. It's the resolution of compliance with the state statute. We don't get to change that statute. Those numbers and those deadlines are in state statute. So we can choose not to adopt it and be non-compliant, or we can choose to adopt it and then also in our rules and practices commit to each other that if there is a need for a special meeting, we will give more time than that. We can say 5 days or 10 days or however long we want. But if we fail to comply with this state requirement, we're putting ourselves at risk.
Putting us out of business.
So I've pulled it up. I concur. The separate resolution, the rules of transaction of business that is on the books, there is an item for special meetings. If the commission would like me to bring that back to you to amend, that's something I can do at a future date, but I would caution that that's probably the right place to do it.
Any other questions on this? Okay, then we have a motion and a second. Call for a roll call vote. Commissioner Holman?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez?
Yes.
Commissioner Edward?
No.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carried 6-1. Let the record show that, what was it called? The Public
Meetings Act.
Resolution 2024-1 P&Z Open Meetings Act.
Open is adopted. Okay, is there no other new business, correct? Okay, then we'll move to the Planning Department report. Director Rubin?
Thank you, Chairman. So I'll keep it really brief. Staff has been very busy working with residents on their projects. In December, of note, there was a high volume of business license renewals, as is typical in December, and that continues into January a bit. We are very lucky to still have our associate Brennan Williams on board helping us out. It's been really helpful with the workload. Additionally, the Citizens Advisory Committee has been meeting to discuss proposed text amendments to Ordinance 284, the Conservation Development Pilot Projects. I would like to plug a public meeting. We're trying to say it as many times as possible. I believe it's already in the Village Vision that has come out this month or is about to. There will be 2 public meetings to present the recommended changes to the public on February 1st of this year, one at 2 p.m. and another at 5:30 p.m. So same thing, but depending on your schedule, this might give you some flexibility to come. I will make sure that, at least for the commissioners, we will be noticing a quorum just in case you all would like to be involved. So no need to notify me about that. But just an FYI for the public, that there will be public meetings. And I think that's about all for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, then we'll move to the commission informal discussion. Are there any reports or information or discussion that the commissioners want to have? Commissioner Martinez.
What I did is I had a discussion with Maida, and I think it came out tonight, and she did due diligence. But I truly believe that one of the things that we get a lot of is the ability for setbacks. And being in a couple of businesses that setbacks are something that are critical, and we actually had one over here a couple of months ago that changed the whole environment of approval or disapproval based upon a survey coming in and them showing, and it changed it over. So I think that we need to be open to trying to figure some way to get the applicants to show us as you define, is this fence? I think what we need to do is separate fence and legal property lines to specifically get into setbacks that we are approving or disapproving. And Maida's made a big effort and talked to different cities and counties, and they don't have, that she uses the same standards that they do. But I think it's something that we need to get more into discussions, because even though I agree with her, it's the individual that's coming in, it's their responsibility to prove that this is where the lot lines are. But sometimes all they'll do is get a Xerox copy and start making lines. And I just don't know how to go any further with it by saying it's our due diligence that we really need to, because it helps us really determine that by being able to see and say, okay, this is an offense, this is a property line, and this is specifically setbacks. So I think it's something that needs to be ongoing in 24, and I'd be more than happy to continue working with her on that. We just don't know, but I wanted to bring it to your presence that it comes out a lot here. And I think that we need to kind of figure out how best to appropriate the time and the space that we can say, okay, I agree that this is legally the lot line, not a fence line. And that's mine.
Any other comments?
I think you got to have a stake boundary survey in order to establish this. It's kind of like saying, you know, you're on a football field and you say, well, how do you know it's 100 yards? Because I drew the chalk out. Well, did you measure it? You know, it's senseless. If you don't have a stake boundary survey showing where the property line is relative to the features, it's meaningless. I think we should hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Welcome to New Mexico.
Bill?
Mr. Chairman, if I could comment on that issue. The problem we run into, particularly in a village like this one, that has a lot of old development. A lot of it was done before there was a platting ordinance. As you recall, the platting ordinance was totally thrown out in 1968, the Bernalillo County one. A lot of it was done on MRGCD tracks. And so you have fences that have been there for many years. In New Mexico, there's a doctrine called a doctrine of acquiescence. If two property owners recognize a fence as the property line over a long period of time, the cases don't say how long, but it's got to be at least 10 years, that becomes the property line. So what happens many times here, and it's happened while I was here, you get a survey, and the survey line is not on the fence line, but the property owner, in fact, may own all the way to the fence. And so the village had elected to place that burden really on the property owner and not get involved in whether or not the fence was on the property line, because many times they don't coincide. And that's the problem you run into. The stake survey didn't exist at the time. You get one now. It may be 5 feet off, but the property owner owns to the fence legally. So that's just a problem.
Well, I think that today we were pretty hard on a guy and held him to a very high and strict tolerance and standard, for which we have already said, as you just said, that, you know, just build your fence wherever you want and that'll be your new setback.
No, we didn't say that.
No, that isn't what we said.
That's what
No,
ultimately
I
is
disagree
happening.
with you.
Nobody said
That's not it. I'm just saying that we discussed this many times, and it didn't appear that it was an issue the village wanted to take on to try to make people adjudicate their property line every time they came in, because that may be impossible to do. And so that's the reason it's as vague as it is, but not a good system, but I think that's the way the village is laid out. They don't have new plats on most of this stuff that shows corners and staked corners.
Commissioner Barrow?
I hear you, Robert. I also want to lighten this up a little bit. Back in the day, first day of my law school property class, first words were, well, welcome to New Mexico.
And I know this is the commissioner discussion. If I may add real quick, just as informational, the additional reason that I think communities don't have that as a requirement typically is that it puts a very high bar on the applicant for what you need to produce in order to do anything on your property. I understand all of the pitfalls that come with that, but that means if you want to do a portal or anything on your property that might come before you, that means the applicant might not have a survey on them and they need to hire someone to do a survey of the property. So just keep that in mind moving forward. I'm happy to keep discussing this with you all. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Well, one of the
Commissioner
things that I
Martinez.
can bring up, I have a background in surveying, I have a background in real estate. One of the things that's critical when we look at lots specifically in any part of New Mexico is title insurance. And title insurance is based upon surveys, and surveys are required to close a transaction. And I'm not trying to build or take away, I'm just saying that in accordance to the rules of title insurance for all properties that are being held by banks, there are surveys. And I go to the opposite side, that it's almost impossible to say through them, say, okay, you go get a survey, where a surveyor is going to charge them $1,800 for a $300 portal. And I'm not trying to go to that direction, but what I'm trying to go to is that there is a lot already in state with title insurance and survey and county that maybe we can require them a little bit more diligence to, if they have a mortgage on that, they have a survey on that.
But,
They have a survey.
but as Bill has said, there's a lot of properties in the village that have been there a long time, and there's no survey, and I know where my property is, just don't ask me any questions. Any other questions? Okay, then I'd like a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
and all in favor, please leave the room.
All right.
Thank you, JT.
8:50.
Meeting's adjourned at 8:51.
All right, Shalene. Mary,
Nice to meet you.
take it easy.
Glad to work with you now.
You bet.
Have a good evening.
Did,
Oh, you too.
Did you watch the game?
No, I was at a,
Did you go to the?
I was at the